Gennady Golovkin and David Lemieux are both well known for one thing: the knockout. Between them, they have beaten 67 opponents, and only 6 of those men have made it to the final bell, for a combined knockout rate of 90%. On October 17, 2015, these two men will meet in the ring. It will be a thrilling opportunity to learn something about the technique behind the much sought-after KO, and the mentality of the men who specialize in turning out the lights. It's Golovkin versus Lemieux, and this is a tale of two punchers. The first thing that stands out about Golovkin and Lemieux is their power, obviously. And while there's always a certain mystery behind the power of a truly gifted puncher, both men have excellent punching mechanics. Lemieux stands out as the more traditional puncher. You can almost feel his punches just by watching them. See how his weight shifts from one side to the other. To throw his trademark left hook, for example, he first plants his left foot heavily, and then drives all of his weight off of that foot to throw the punch, as if starting a particularly uncooperative lawnmower. Likewise for his right hand, which starts with the weight on the right foot. Lemieux drives forward, throwing his weight to his left and twisting his body violently to put every ounce of his body weight into the blow. There's weight transfer in Golovkin's punches too, but it's a lot sneakier, less obvious. Gennady employs a very Eastern European approach that allows him to adjust his body position as he throws. Look at the small steps he takes between strikes, setting his feet in the instant before each punch, and then moving them again. Just like Lemieux, each of Golovkin's punches leaves most of his weight on one foot. After landing that punch, however, he typically takes a short step with his opposite foot before firing off his next attack. This way he can cover distance, change angles, and make all the little adjustments necessary to throw punch after punch without falling off balance or letting the opponent escape. These little steps help Golovkin set up for the next punch in a combination, and they also make him a more difficult target for counters. But there's more to these fighters than their power. A knockout puncher is not necessarily a knockout artist. The art is in landing those heavy blows against a skilled opponent who very much wants the opposite to happen. For both Golovkin and Lemieux, the jab is a key tool in setting up those thudding knockout blows. Golovkin's jab has been a staple of his game for a very long time, and for good reason. Triple G's snapping left hand is deceptively stiff, but its real purpose is in disrupting the opponent, putting him off balance or keeping him vulnerable if he's already out of position. Watch here as Golovkin stalks Daniel Geale, using his jab to punish Geale for his sloppy footwork. Geale commits the cardinal boxing sin of crossing his feet right in front of Golovkin, so Triple G immediately sticks him with the jab. Geale tries to recover by moving away, but his feet are still out of position. Golovkin knows that Geale can't really throw back without first turning to face him, so he presses the attack, keeping his jab in Geale's face to prevent him from making the proper adjustments. Now Geale is forced to just cover up and wait for Golovkin to go away, and instead Golovkin spears a right hand right through his gloves. Geale's still in a tricky position, of course, trapped in the corner, and Golovkin knows that he'll have to find a way out. Instead of going nuts and swinging away, Golovkin waits for Geale to move, measuring the distance with his left hand and then using that same left hand to threaten Geale, convincing him to move his head right into the path of a crisp straight right. Lemieux's got a nice jab too, but his is more of the Sonny Liston stabbing you with a lamppost variety. It's what Bernard Hopkins might call a shotgun jab. The way Lemieux drops his weight and aims for the chest of his opponent gives this punch serious stopping power. You just can't walk through it. And that makes it an excellent tool for a boxer who's just now really starting to find his feet as a pressure fighter. Lemieux's heavy jab tends to make opponents jumpy, because when it lands, it hurts. It demands respect. See how Gabe Rosado, the more traditional boxer, responds to Lemieux's jab here. It's Rosado who jabs first, but Lemieux sits down on a lightning bolt counter jab, and Rosado has to take a backward step. When the same thing happens again, Rosado covers up, and that allows Lemieux to start putting together a power combination. Later, the jab simply backs Rosado into the corner. He can't go through it, so he has to move away from it, and then he's pinned in on either side by the left hooks and looping right hands of Lemieux. The final key aspect of a power puncher's game is his defense. Defensive responsibility is what allows a heavy-handed fighter to stay in the fight long enough to put his power to use. In this respect, I maintain the somewhat unpopular position that Golovkin is actually regressing, following the same route as men like Mike Tyson and George Foreman, both of whom relied more and more on their power and durability as their careers wore on, and less on their defensive skills, to the point that those skills started to rust and ultimately fade away. In fact, Golovkin and Lemieux may be headed in opposite directions. Golovkin doesn't seem to have much patience for defensive fighting anymore. When you watch him fight, his thought process seems to be, why worry about his punches if I can just stay close enough to land twice as many of my own? He seemed almost offended by the notion that Willie Monroe Jr. would punch with him in his last fight, and responded by ramping up his aggression and increasing the number of punches he threw. Whereas Lemieux, who lost his cool in both of the first two 12-round fights of his career, seems to have settled down in recent years and accepted the fact that he doesn't have to knock his opponent out to get the win. Of course, Lemieux is still a more limited fighter than Golovkin. Despite his improvements, he still does not possess Golovkin's diversity of defensive skills. At just 26 years of age, he also lacks the 31-year-old Golovkin's experience. He may be more cautious with his defense, but most of his defensive action consists of a simple high guard and a few backward steps when things get a little too hot in the pocket. It's his willingness to improve that stands out. Still, Golovkin's utter confidence in his ability to trade punches with his opponent makes him incredibly dangerous. Take a look at this sequence from his bout with Monroe. Golovkin corners Monroe and then just waits. Monroe tentatively jabs at him, and Golovkin slips outside the jab, holding this position and waiting to see if Monroe will capitalize. When Monroe extends another tentative jab, Golovkin decides to spring the trap, putting Monroe down with a vicious left hook before Monroe's counter can find its mark. Golovkin's willingness to stand in the pocket may make him an easier target than he used to be, but he's never not looking to hit his opponent, and that makes exploiting his defensive openings a very dangerous task. When Triple G and Lemieux square up, it'll be an interesting test for both men. We'll almost certainly see just how much Lemieux has improved, and his power makes him stand out from Golovkin's usual fare. But we've yet to see Gennady Golovkin outfought, and when the going gets tough, his experience and craft may very well decide the fight. I'm Ruebusch, and this has been A Tale of Two Punchers. For more Golovkin-Lemieux coverage, head over to badlefthook.com. Thanks for watching.